In the charming, tree-lined suburbs of Maplewood, the Richardson family appeared to be the epitome of success and happiness. At the center of this seemingly perfect family were Peter Richardson, a distinguished architect in his mid-40s, and his wife, Eleanor, a graceful woman in her early 40s who had once been a celebrated pianist. They had been married for nearly a decade, merging their lives and families seamlessly, or so it seemed. Peter brought no children into the marriage, while Eleanor had a daughter from her previous marriage, Emma, a bright and vivacious 17-year-old with dreams of becoming a writer. Together, they formed a blended family that attended all the right social events, donated to local charities, and were well regarded in their community. Eleanor had always taken pride in her role as the glue that held the family together. She hosted elaborate dinners, organized family vacations, and made sure everyone felt included and loved. Yet, beneath the surface of this idyllic family life, tensions simmered, and an undercurrent of dissatisfaction began to brew. Peter, dedicated to his work, often found himself away from home, leaving Eleanor to manage the household. Emma, struggling with the transition to a new family dynamic, felt increasingly alienated. She missed the closeness she had shared with her mother before her marriage to Peter. As the months went by, she found herself confiding more in her stepfather than her peers. Peter, too, felt a growing bond with Emma. He admired her creativity and ambition, finding in her a kindred spirit who understood his passion for his work. Their conversations grew deeper, more personal, as they shared their hopes, dreams, and frustrations. What started as innocent conversations gradually evolved into something more complex and forbidden. One evening, while Eleanor was attending a charity event, Peter and Emma found themselves alone in the house. They decided to watch a movie together, choosing a classic film that both enjoyed. As the movie played, their proximity on the couch led to casual touches that lingered a little too long. After the movie ended, an electric silence filled the room. Peter looked at Emma, his heart pounding with a mixture of guilt and desire. Emma, sensing the moment's gravity, hesitated, but ultimately leaned in, initiating a kiss that would change everything. The kiss was brief, charged with emotion and confusion. They quickly pulled away, each grappling with the implications of their actions. From that night on, the dynamic between Peter and Emma shifted. They tried to maintain a semblance of normalcy, but the attraction between them was undeniable. They began to find more opportunities to be alone together, stealing moments of intimacy whenever they could. The thrill of their secret affair was matched only by the growing burden of guilt they both carried. Their next encounter happened on a rainy afternoon. Eleanor had gone to visit her sister for the weekend, leaving Peter and Emma alone again. They decided to bake cookies, a pastime they both enjoyed. The kitchen was filled with the sweet aroma of chocolate chip cookies, and laughter echoed through the house as they playfully threw flour at each other. The playful atmosphere soon turned into something more intense. As they found themselves inches apart, the laughter dying down, replaced by a charged silence. Peter reached out, brushing a flour-covered strand of hair from Emma's face. Their eyes locked, and before they knew it, they were kissing again, this time more passionately. Their relationship escalated quickly after that. They would meet in secret, finding secluded spots around town to spend time together. One of their favorite places was a hidden corner of the local library. They would sit close, their hands occasionally brushing against each other's as they whispered softly, the thrill of being discovered adding to the intensity of their encounters. Peter would occasionally surprise Emma with small gifts, tokens of his affection that she treasured deeply. The affair took a lavish turn when Peter invited Emma on a business trip to New York City. Eleanor was told it was a simple father-daughter bonding trip, a reward for Emma's excellent grades. In reality, it was an opportunity for Peter and Emma to escape the prying eyes of Maplewood. They stayed in a luxurious hotel, enjoying the city's sights by day and each other's company by night. They attended Broadway shows, dined at upscale restaurants, and took long walks in Central Park. The trip was a dream come true for Emma, who had never experienced such luxury. For Peter, it was a chance to indulge in his feelings for Emma without the constraints of their everyday life. As their relationship deepened, so did their emotional connection. They began to imagine a future together, away from the constraints of their current lives. They fantasized about moving to a new city, starting fresh where no one knew them. But reality always had a way of intruding on their fantasies. The guilt weighed heavily on both of them, particularly Peter. He was acutely aware of the betrayal, not just of his marriage vows, but of the trust Eleanor had placed in him as a husband and father figure to Emma. Eleanor, ever the attentive wife and mother, began to notice subtle changes in her family's behavior. Emma seemed more withdrawn, while Peter's demeanor grew more tense and distracted. At first, Eleanor dismissed these changes as typical teenage mood swings and the pressures of Peter's demanding job. But as the weeks went by, her suspicions grew. One particularly revealing moment occurred during a family barbecue they had hosted for their neighbors. Eleanor noticed how Emma stayed close to Peter the entire time, their interactions filled with a familiarity that seemed out of place. She observed the way Peter's gaze followed Emma, the way his eyes softened whenever he looked at her. These moments gnawed at Eleanor, planting seeds of doubt and jealousy. Eleanor's suspicions reached a peak one evening when she returned home unexpectedly from a shopping trip. She had planned to surprise her family with a special dinner, hoping to bring back some of the warmth and closeness they had once shared. As she entered the house, she heard soft murmurs coming from the living room. Curious, Eleanor quietly approached, peeking around the corner. She saw Peter and Emma sitting close together on the couch, their heads bent close as they whispered. The sight sent a chill down her spine. She watched as Peter gently brushed a strand of hair from Emma's face, his touch lingering a moment too long. Eleanor quickly retreated, her heart pounding with a mixture of suspicion and fear. Determined to get to the bottom of things, Eleanor began to pay closer attention to Peter and Emma's interactions. She noticed how they seemed to find excuses to be alone together, how their conversations would abruptly end whenever she entered the room. She even caught them exchanging secretive glances during family dinners. The growing evidence of their closeness left her feeling increasingly isolated and paranoid. The breaking point came during a family trip to their lakeside cabin, a place that had always been a sanctuary for Eleanor. She had hoped the trip would help rekindle the family's closeness, but instead, it became the setting for a painful revelation. One night, unable to sleep, Eleanor went for a walk along the lake. As she approached the cabin, she heard voices coming from the porch. She hid in the shadows, listening to Peter and Emma talking in hushed tones. Their conversation confirmed her worst fears. They were discussing their future together, planning a life that excluded her. The betrayal hit Eleanor like a physical blow, leaving her breathless with pain and rage. Back in the cabin, Eleanor confronted Peter. The argument was heated and emotional, with accusations flying and tears flowing. Peter, caught off guard and overwhelmed with guilt, confessed to the affair with Emma. He begged for Eleanor's forgiveness, swearing it was a mistake and promising to end it immediately. Eleanor was devastated. She felt a deep betrayal not only from Peter but also from Emma. She confronted Emma, demanding to know how she could betray her trust. Emma, in tears, tried to explain her feelings of loneliness and isolation, how she had sought comfort in Peter's company. But Eleanor could not be consoled. She felt her world crumbling around her. The perfect family she had worked so hard to build now shattered. In the days that followed, Eleanor struggled to maintain her composure. She acted as if everything was normal, but inside, she was plotting. Her thoughts grew darker, consumed by the need to make both Peter and Emma pay for their betrayal. She started to devise a plan that would bring about the ultimate retribution. Eleanor's plan began to take shape during a particularly stormy night. She had always been meticulous and organized, qualities that now served her well in her dark endeavor. She decided that the upcoming family dinner would be the stage for her final act. She meticulously prepared a special meal, one that would appear to be a celebration of their family, but would instead be the setting for their downfall. The night of the dinner, Eleanor was calm and composed. She served each dish with care, masking her true intentions behind a facade of warmth and hospitality. Peter and Emma, still reeling from the confrontation, tried to act normal, but the tension was thick in the air. As the dinner progressed, Eleanor waited for the right moment. She watched as Peter and Emma ate, knowing they had no idea of the poison she had slipped into their food. She had researched carefully, choosing a substance that would cause a slow, painful death, ensuring they would suffer for their sins. Peter was the first to feel the effects. He clutched his stomach, his face contorted in pain. Emma followed soon after, her eyes wide with fear and confusion. Realizing something was terribly wrong, Peter looked to Eleanor for help, but she remained eerily calm. She watched as Peter and Emma writhed in agony, her heart hardened by the betrayal she felt. As Peter and Emma's cries grew weaker, Eleanor sat back, watching as the life drained from them. She felt a strange sense of satisfaction, mixed with the numbness of grief. Her plan had been executed perfectly, but the reality of what she had done began to settle in. She was alone, having destroyed the very people she had once loved. The police arrived the next morning, alerted by a concerned neighbor who had heard the screams. They found Eleanor sitting at the dining table, surrounded by the bodies of her family. She offered no resistance, calmly confessing to her crimes. Her face was a mask of cold detachment as she was led away in handcuffs. In the days that followed, the community of Maplewood was in shock. The Richardson family, once seen as the ideal of suburban success, had been torn apart by secrets, betrayal, and, ultimately, murder. The news of Eleanor's actions spread quickly, leaving neighbors and friends grappling with disbelief and sorrow. Eleanor's trial was swift. The evidence was overwhelming, and her confession left no room for doubt. She was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. As she sat in her cell, she replayed the events in her mind, feeling a mixture of regret and justification. She had avenged her betrayal, but at the cost of everything she had held dear. Peter and Emma's deaths were mourned by the community, their memories tainted by the scandal that had unfolded. The Richardson house stood empty, a silent testament to the horrors that had occurred within its walls. In the end, the story of the Richardson family serves as a stark reminder of the consequences of unchecked emotions and the destructive power of betrayal. It highlights the importance of addressing issues within families before they can escalate into something unmanageable. The tragedy that befell the Richardsons left a lasting impact on everyone who knew them, a somber lesson on the fragility of human relationships and the need for compassion and understanding. The legacy of the Richardson family was one of heartbreak and caution. It served as a powerful reminder of the consequences of betrayal and the destructive power of obsession. As the years went by, their story faded from the headlines, but it remained etched in the memories of those who had known them.